Hello and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast. On this week's show,
We'll be looking at the history of All Elite Wrestling.
Along with this past week's Dynamite and looking into and up to and forward to Full Gear.
hello everyone and welcome once again to the Pro Wrestling Post podcast. As always, I'm your gracious host, Mark Blake, and I'm joined by my friends from across the pond, Marc Madison and Pete Moon. Just before we hand over to them, I'd just like to say thank you to all the great kind words we had last week from the WWE episode. It was a departure from our usual tack, and it went down a storm, according to you guys and girls out there. So, hands together, praying, thank you very much, in a Corey Graves kind of style. It's very much appreciated. It's nice to know that what we're doing resonates with you lot. Guys, Mark, Pete, how are we doing? Mark, how are we doing over there first?
We're doing great. Good times ahead. Very good times ahead. I'm excited. For lots of different reasons, but yeah.
Nice and short and sweet from you, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Pete, how are you? I know we've got some congratulations in order for you.
Yeah. I just had orientation with a new job and going to be starting that on Monday. So I'm equal parts kind of tired and kind of excited.
Fantastic. That's such good news for you, from you both. Obviously, Mark's not going to go into too much detail because it's very, very personal. And Pete has a new job, which means possibly less of Pete on the site, folks. Now, don't worry, fans. He will still be around. He'll still be on the pod. He will still do his brace for impact, but he will be less around on the site. So you'll still get your Pete fix. Do not worry. Now, as I alluded to in the beginning there of this pod, last week was a kind of WWE retrospective and a look forward and a bit of fancy booking. It went down really well. And at the end of last week's show, we all kind of agreed that this week will be AEW. And as last week's format worked, we're going to do it the same again this week. So it's all about AEW, that young upstart company, as quite a few internet open air quotes journalists have called them. The history of AEW can be attributed to one comment. In May 2017, Dave Meltzer commented that Ring of Honor couldn't sell 10,000 tickets for a wrestling event. Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks took exception to this comment and ended up promoting and holding an independent professional wrestling event called All In on September 2018. This event sold out in 30 minutes and had the largest audience in attendance for a professional wrestling show in America that wasn't WWE or WCW since 1993. An amazing 11,263 people watched history being made. The official announcement of AEW's creation came on January the 1st, 2019 in an episode of Being the Elite. This episode of Being the Elite also had the first mentioning of Double or Nothing, AEW's first ever pay-per-view. A week later, after the Being the Elite YouTube show, outside TIAA Bankfield, a press conference took place where the talents were announced that were going to perform as part of the promotion. SoCo Uncensored, Hangman Adam Page, Dr. Britt Baker, Joey Janela, Pac, and even Chris Jericho were all announced to the delight of hundreds in attendance. At the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, the current AEW World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley debuted, and the company has not looked back. On October 2nd, 2019, AEW's flagship program Dynamite aired for the very first time to rave reviews from industry insiders and wrestling fans alike. And this weekend, All Elite Wrestling will be holding a second Full Gear pay-per-view. Things are certainly looking good for this young upstart promotion. Mark, let's hand this over to you.
Sure.
With AEW being such a young company, it's a bit hard to say what got you into it, like I did last week with WWE. So I'm going to try and word it like this. Was it because it's a brand new upstart company, you know, that new shiny feeling, and they're going to, you know, hit a right-hander on Vince's nose? Is that why you started watching it? Was it because that they brought in this talent that you'd been watching for many years, this indie talent like Cody and the Bucks and Kenny and all the other? Or was there something else? What was it about AEW that got you into them, mate?
It's funny that you say it that way because it really is a combination of things. We looked at AEW on potentially being the rise at a point where Impact, we weren't quite sure of where they were. I mean, they've turned the corner, we'd say, a little more after AEW has, it's had spurts of that where it's been a lot more consistent. Coincidentally, maybe when Pete has been previewing them, I don't know. I'm just going to call it as it is. Might be that. But another reason could be competition. At the same time, Ring of Honor seemed to lose that muster that made them so special. A lot of their talent moved on, and then developing talent became even harder because they were looking for the next option. So those things kind of lead you in the direction of, well, you've got an owner that has virtually untapped, like they have resources beyond resources, being an NFL owner, which exceeds a billionaire in Vince McMahon with being a billionaire multiple times over. It's intriguing as to what could happen. That was intriguing as potentially being something to be interested in. But you did mention the idea of independent wrestlers being a part of it, and that drew me too. There are tons of independent stars that are still either they're working with AEW or they're on the independents or they're balancing between the both, being on AEW Dark. You're getting exposure to them, they're getting seen. It's almost like an opportunity to be seen on television without the feeling that you're tied to that promotion. So that did intrigue me. Then the idea of talent coming over from different promotions and coming together and almost creating this super group, which has that recipe for either being great or not. And that's what intrigued me as well, too, initially. So that combination of things is really something that keeps me watching and wondering and curious. I do have my questions about them, but maybe not the same questions others do. I know there are fans that tend to bicker with other fans and are critical and feel like one are apologists and one aren't, and one accepts them and one doesn't. Didn't want to get into that, but it's really too hard to judge a promotion on the second year in the midst of a pandemic. So what does it look like if your crowds are live or there? What does that look like? So it's something to look at long term, I think.
Nice to hear someone put some thought behind their answer, because I floated the same kind of question to a couple of my wrestling buds over here, and all I got back was, "Oh, I'm a huge fan of Kenny," or "I'm a huge fan of the Bucks," or "I'm a huge fan of blah 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 blah." And because they was in AEW, we started watching. So to not hear that and hear a thoughtful, intelligent answer about just the company itself and the backer and the owner is it's different. So it's a breath of fresh air. What about you, Pete? Are you please? I've probably just set you up there, haven't I?
Yeah, really. I mean, yeah, like I was a fan of a lot of the people who showed up at All In back in 2018, 2016.
2018.
2018.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's been a long couple of years. But yeah, I remember watching All In and seeing a whole bunch of people that I'd seen live a couple of times. Ethan Page was in the over budget battle royal that time. I was expecting that he would show up in All Elite Wrestling when the time came, but it seems like he has found his groove in Impact Wrestling, where he and Josh Alexander were, of course, the longest reigning Impact Tag Team Champions. But yeah, it was definitely a case of not only being such a fan of these of the indie talent, but also kind of knowing that there's kind of a stigma amongst them about going to WWE, or that like they had tried to get into WWE before, but for whatever reason they just didn't. A lot of people who I'd liked to have seen in AEW have found their groove in Impact, and that's all well and good. But yeah, like you said, or like I said before, it was really just because I knew that, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, even though WWE were handing them potentially lots of money, and I think they even gave Adam Page, or they offered Adam Page like a whole bunch more creative control over the direction of his character and all this stuff that it was gonna get in NXT. But they all turned it down. So it was a case of seeing where they're gonna end up next. And then when they announced All Elite Wrestling, it was like, well, now we know. Now we know that these people are going somewhere where not only are they going to be making a respectable amount of money, but they're going to be wrestling their way. They're not going to be beholden to Vince McMahon or anyone who's anyone with all that kind of power backstage in the WWE, and they're free to do something else, something new.
That's another interesting point. There's been lots of talk that when Kenny and Cody and the Bucks and the higher ups on the food chain of AEW, when they got their contracts, there was talk that they were going to be some kind of involvement between themselves and every other wrestler going forward about their storylines. So to hear that from AEW, where you've got Tony Khan and everyone else up there saying, yeah, we actively are looking for our wrestlers, our talent, to get involved with their storylines. And then on the other end of the scale, you've got Vince McMahon, who is standing there like a headmaster with a cane in his hand going, this is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. We don't need to hear from you because we've got these writers that don't know their ass from their elbow. It's great. It's how it used to be to a certain point, how Vince used to be. He used to have his talent back then come in and get involved and how they could see their storyline going and match projections and everything else. And then he went corporate and that all stopped. Whereas AEW are already a corporate entity and they're still involved in it. It's great. It really is. What about you guys? Can you see both ends? Can you see any merit in Vince's and in Tony Khan's way of doing things?
With Vince's way of doing things, like it really has merit based on who's writing, because we think of when the writing was really good, like the Attitude Era, and you have, well, I don't want to get too much in praise of Vince Russo, but it was what it was. It was pretty darn good, even when it was even in the times when it was hit and miss. And then there was who was it who took over right after him? Chris Kremski.
I can't remember for the life of me.
Yeah, I know it's like a double C sound. And I can tell that it's not something I've thought about that much since the last time anyone brought it up. But you look at those guys who were definitely getting input from wrestlers. Like I remember hearing about Edge and Christian talking about where they wanted their storylines to go. But like I said, it really depends on the caliber of writer you have in the writer's room. That name,
sorry, mate, was Chris Kresge. So you was bang
Chris
on.
Kresge, yeah,
so close.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Chris Kresge, and it was really the best part about the Attitude Era, and you kind of see that in AEW right now, is that everyone has something to do, and when that's the case, everything becomes much easier to plan, because you know what someone's shtick is, how that fits into the overall scheme, and then you can see where paths might cross. And with those paths crossing, that's when you get the opportunity, at least, to build interesting storylines based on who has good chemistry and who's got interesting styles and gimmicks. And yeah, that's my take, very, very broadly.
That's cool. So what about you, Mark? Are you a Tony Khan guy? Are you a Vince McMahon guy? Are you a Paul Heyman guy? Are you a Mark Blake guy? Come on, what is it?
Well, I'm always a Mark Blake guy, but I'm definitely more so. I think elements of all of them have been effective and have messed up in one way, shape, or form. Like it can't all be one thing, and they've flopped on some of their writing and some of their concepts and some of their projections on things, and they've hit home runs on things, right? Can definitely say I'm a really well manicured Vince Russo is still a lot of work in progress. I can lean more so in some of the qualities that came about from Paul Heyman writing around SmackDown around 2003 and 4, 2, maybe 2002, 2005. That was really fun time. Maybe my favorite time watching SmackDown and the WWE.
SmackDown 6.
And he was responsible for that. Sorry?
SmackDown 6.
Yeah, the SmackDown 6. That's always what we're talked about. But I always wonder when talent have complete control, if there's always that willingness. Eventually, do you get tired of what is? I mean, for more selfish reasons, do they think, okay, well, we need to think about what's best for business, but ultimately, if wins and losses, especially is what they've advocated, counted, is that the direction that they end up looking at it as? Do I become more credible if I've the string of wins? Am I less credible because I have the string of losses? Is the string of losses tied to a storyline? Sometimes yes. I don't know. I mean, Brandon Cutler has one win and I think 24 losses, and he looks. He's got makeup on, and he looks like a human Dragon Ball Z. I really don't know if that resonates with people. If he's super talented, but does he stand out as a talent that you want to go and watch? And that's some of the fear with having an influx of guys where not everybody gets a chance or a sense. There's got to be a quality about that person that stands out that you want to watch every week, that you're following them in and out. And I think that's been probably my biggest gripe about AEW.
So with AEW's booking, you're saying there's a lots of hits and a few misses, but the misses are so glaringly obvious, or words to that effect, that's what your takeaway is. I can think of one thing. It was Brandy Rhodes and the Nightmare Collective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That storyline started going somewhere, and then Awesome Kong brought out a knife, started cutting off people's hair, and then it got dropped like a hot potato, never thought of again. And when she got called out on it on Twitter, saying, well, where's the storyline gone? She blatantly said the storyline was going nowhere, so we killed it. Now, you wouldn't see that in WWE. They would play that storyline to death. Retribution.
Beat me to it.
They would. They'll play it to death and then go, oh, well, it didn't work.
Also, we mentioned Retribution, so anyone who's playing the drinking game at home, there's one.
There you go. Take a shot right now, folks.
You won't be standing by the end of the night.
But yeah, that's. I can see where you're coming from, but on the same way that AEW, Brandy, and Tony Khan and everyone else involved in the booking, look like they'll quite easily drop a storyline like that if it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So again, it's still a young company, so there's plenty of time to do more cock ups and everything else. Not that I'm trying to sound like a grumpy old fart, but
at the same time, so we hit, for like an example, we also had Brandy and the Bunny, or Brandy and Allie being a tandem that was working together, wasn't, and then it wasn't working. It kind of ran its course. There was always tension, and then she was brought back into the fold with the Butcher and the Blade, which I always thought was a fun dynamic to have the three of them. I mean, the real life marriage between the Blade and the Bunny, and then the longtime friendship between the Butcher and the Blade outside of wrestling too.
I'm kind of concerned about the Butcher, to be quite honest, because Andy Williams is working, I think, 5 jobs now, because he's a guitarist with Every Time I Die. He's a butcher. He's a wrestler. He's a butcher. He's a hitman, I think, because I've seen him take money from MJF to beat up somebody. That's 4 jobs right near. One of them is criminal. So is Andy Williams doing okay?
Oh,
Does he need help?
he's going through tough times like everyone else in the world, and he's diversifying his jobs. That's what he's doing. You've got to give him credit for that. Bless him. We can tie that into my next question. With it being 18 months and a bit old, what do you think have been the defining matches and/or rivalries? Because the booking's going to play a part in that too.
Well, Moxley and Jericho.
Yeah.
Moxley and Jericho and Cody, I guess, to start things off.
Jericho and Orange Cassidy.
Cody and MJF, but I'm not really sure. Did they have their blow off? Did they really get closure?
Yeah, I don't think that's finished.
Really,
I think they kind of put that on a slower burn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that though.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to throw out there Cody and Darby Allin. My little wingman absolutely loves Darby Allin. He is one of his favourite wrestlers. He loves the fact that he's a skateboarder and so cool, the tattoos and everything else. But if it wasn't for Cody and the booking, my little wingman wouldn't know who Darby Allin is. It's Cody elevated Darby Allin. He's also elevated Orange Cassidy and quite a few others on the AEW roster. So people see more eyes on them rather than seeing them on Dark, and sometimes people are watching Dark and spending more time on their phones looking at Facebook or Twitter than they are on the TV. It's the booking, as you said again, has helped these rivalries, has helped promote and grow these talent. I mean, as you said Orange Cassidy, the guy's gone from being the valet of best friends to one of the biggest stars of the company right now, and he hasn't hardly wrestled a lot. That's great booking.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, trying to keep your secret weapons to yourself for the most part.
Yeah. How about things that should have gone well and just haven't gone well? And the one stands out is Matt Hardy and Sammy Guevara.
Well, we'll touch on that in a bit later on, but
Okay, sure.
yeah, I mean, their matches on the Full Gear card, so we'll expand on that a bit further. But
Okay.
I know exactly what you're saying. That should be written down on paper. You're seeing it in black and white. You think that's going to elevate Sammy Guevara, and unfortunately, due to injuries, this feud just hasn't caught fire. I don't know if that's booking or if that's the injuries itself, or could it be the COVID and no fans? I don't know, but you've definitely got one there. That just hasn't, to me personally, caught fire. What about you guys?
No.
Yeah, it's really one that kind of got scuttered by the suspension of Sammy Guevara and the concussion to Matt Hardy. Now, I think that this one you can chalk up mostly to those external externalities rather than anything that they did necessarily inside the ring. Because they have decent chemistry, they can put on some strong performances, as we saw with the Stadium Stampede, and I think they had a match on Dynamite one. But yeah, the fact that this feud had to be put on ice basically after Full Gear and even over the summer has played a bigger role in making it fall flat than Matt Hardy or Sammy Guevara having any lacking in the talent department.
Yeah, it is a shame. The ingredients were there. It was just didn't catch. But then we've still got this Saturday to go, and we'll talk about that a bit later. Is there anything else that you can think of, guys, that just really hasn't hit the mark?
I am kind of underwhelmed at this Young Bucks FTR booking.
So is FTR, if you read the dirt sheets. Did you read them over the past couple of days?
I haven't, actually. I haven't. It's been a long time since I've read dirt sheets.
Basically, both, was it Dash and Dax, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Cash and Dax.
Cash and Dax. Sorry. Cash and Dax have gone on record saying that they are underwhelmed with how this match of theirs has been planned out and booked. They were expecting big things. This is a match that they've wanted for years. This is a match that the Bucks and the general public have wanted for years. This is the match that both of them handed in repeatedly their notices in WWE to have this match. And it's a bit of a damp squid, really.
Okay, so are they not all part of coordinating this match and the booking around it? Because if they're all disappointed, they're all to blame for it. They can either make it achieve if they're responsible. Sorry, this is a part where I'm like, we can bicker about what isn't working, or we could shut up and actually try to make it right. You can see this is not working. None of you are happy about it, so fix it. Work together.
The talent themselves do have an input in how things are booked, but just the same as it does with Vince, the final answer or the final decision is with Tony Khan. So they can try and explain to him how they want things and how they expect things. But if Tony says no, then Tony says no. Even with the Bucks being executive VPs, it doesn't matter. It's his money at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. He's paying them. And with FTR being, I would say, new to the promotion,
yeah,
maybe their voice isn't as strong as the Bucks. You know, with the Bucks being executive VPs, they're still getting paid by Tony Khan, so they're employees.
Yeah. Another storyline that kind of fizzled out. I don't even know whether to call it a storyline. Matt Cardona was in AEW for a cup of coffee. He had a match on Dynamite, and then he had a an 8-man tag match at All Out, and now we've not heard from him since.
Well, the rumor was that he was only on a 4 or 5 match contract, even if there was it might have been a handshake agreement.
Yeah, it might have been a deal.
It feels like, as a fan watching it, that he was brought in to cover Cody while Cody was out, and then Cody came back, and Matt has gone off to make millions on his wrestling figures. And we all know that's true because the guy's spending a fortune and selling them on for even bigger prices. So fair play to him.
Yeah,
it's a living.
Truly is.
So that's that part done. Is it, what things have you really, really enjoyed? What matches, what feuds have you enjoyed? Let's finish this part on a high note.
I am enjoying Hangman's split from, or at least the arc that Hangman has been Hangman Adam Page has been taking lately. I say lately, it's since February. Mm-hmm. Like, I think to play that story as seriously as AEW has been playing it, and kind of, doing a better job of portraying a man's spiral into alcoholism than WWE did with Road Warrior Hawk.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
It certainly shows that if AEW is going to tackle sort of those more mature storylines and give us something that's a little edgier than what WWE would put out, it's important also that they take great care in how they portray those storylines. Mm-hmm. And so I like that the split, that Hangman's decision to split from the Elite to forge his own path has also had these consequences that we didn't necessarily see coming, and that he's got more to overcome than just his connection to Cody and Kenny and the Young Bucks. I've liked Orange Cassidy's rise from obscurity to near main event level. I've enjoyed MJF's arc, even if it's been a little meandering.
Yeah, and MJF, it started off this arc. So it started off on a great curve. It was going really, really well, and then it kind of just plateaued. It didn't tail off. It just kind of plateaued for a while, and now it's starting to pick up steam again. So I'm not too sure why that MJF build at the beginning push was suddenly not curtailed or stopped, but just plateaued. He was left in the background while a few other things and pieces were moved around him. It's just strange to me. I thought they were going to push him from the off as like one huge heel.
Could it be pandemic related? Could it be that you didn't necessarily have the audience at that point, and then maybe health was an issue on his end. Was he? I'm not sure. Legitimacy of his own health might have been where everything kind of was on a standstill.
I think the problem was that they pulled the trigger on this storyline, or on the MJF and Cody storyline, before there was a mid-card championship for them to clash over.
That makes sense.
Because if it had been Cody can't challenge for the AEW championship anymore, but he can hold the TNT championship as much as he likes, for him to have a match with MJF over that title makes a whole bunch more sense than them just going back into the shuffle. Another thing occurred to me, if we're prepared to move on from MJF and Cody briefly.
Yeah.
Quietly on AEW Dark, they've had a very compelling storyline with Brendan Cutler and the librarian Peter Avalon, with their losing streak, and them teaming up to try to get a win. And then finally, when they faced each other and it ended in double count out, only to then face each other in an ODQ match. I think that was phenomenal long-term booking, and so under the radar that, like, I don't know why this wasn't on Dynamite.
Mainly because the librarian character hasn't caught on with the general public, I think. That's what I would put it to.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've watched Avalon about a year or 18 months before he joined AEW, so I kind of knew about him and knew his work, but saddling him with this librarian gimmick, yeah, it's a bit hokey, I think, for me.
Well, it's a shared gimmick though too, isn't Leva Bates part of that?
Yeah, Leva Bates is also the librarian. But yeah, I guess it really was something that they were keeping for the being the elite crowd.
Mm-hmm. See, I feel bad because I haven't watched Dark in bloody months. I've not watched Dark. I keep hearing all these like stories and tweets and posts about how some great matches on there, but then I see like an advert for Dark, and it's like, oh, on this week's Dark, we've got like 15 matches. You're like, what? They're all going to be like
it's an hour show.
Minutes. Yeah, it's all going to be 2 or 3 minutes long. I know. I mean, I know I've got a short attention span, but bloody hell, give me more than that.
Yeah, I remember a couple times seeing the pop up for AEW Dark results on Dynamite and wondering how long is Dark that they're able to cram in all these matches.
Yeah, it's an hour show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our show, YouTube.
There's no promos given again. Yeah, on YouTube. Right?
Yeah, check it out. It is a good show. Admittedly, as I just said, I haven't watched it in months, but from what I've read and heard from people who I trust, that it's always a good show. So give that a shout, give that a watch, give that a look-see, and come back to us and tell us tell me how wrong I am and how naughty, and just berate me, much like my wife does when I don't do the washing up after dinner. That's that part done, folks. That is the backstory of AEW. We're gonna quick break. We're gonna, as usual, at this part of the show, I'm gonna hand it over to the head honcho of Pro Wrestling Post, my good buddy Marc Madison, who's got a couple of past and future pieces. So, Mark, what is the deal this week?
Well, this past week, it's been an interesting week for us at the site. If anybody that's followed, at least those of us that are part of staff, know that if we had hair, Mark and I would be pulling it out. But as far as pieces that have come out that have been pretty special, I wanted to refer to a couple in particular. One was from John Hill. He shared this past week about Jimmy Jacobs. He is the zombie princess himself, and really brilliant mind for the business. Very underrated, I think, in a lot of stories, a lot of storytelling that's done. Jimmy Jacobs has probably been a part of it, but when you look at him in front of the camera, you don't get the same response, or he doesn't necessarily get the same respect, but he is well respected by peers and those that are paying attention. And I would definitely encourage anybody. This was one of the last pieces we had as part of our 7 Nights of Fright series. This was just a bit of a hangover piece that We extended it because we enjoyed it, and the life and times of the zombies and Princess Jimmy Jacobs was one of our focal points. Another past piece this week that we were quite enjoying, actually, was that about Miss Serena Deeb, current NWA World Champion. Jake Landmesser had a chance to preview her as part of our AEW talent previews, had a chance to talk about her and what she's contributed. Her career in OVW. One of our other writers has actually trained. He messaged me afterwards. Mike Bryan trained in OVW with Serena Deeb, has said nothing but positive things about her. Help the next person out as much as she would work as hard herself. So it was about raising everybody else to be elite. Ironically enough, that is what the NWA Women's Champion is. She's all elite. And so those were the couple of the past pieces that stood out this week for us. Now, this coming month, the month of November, we're going to commemorate. It is listed as National American Indian Heritage Month, and to show respect, to make aware fans of the past and the contributions of not just American Indians, but Aboriginal, those that are First Nations in Canada as well, and their contributions to wrestling. How it's gone more from just being a gimmick to an embracing of a lifestyle and who they are as a people and a culture, and how their contributions to wrestling are just as important to anyone else's. So over the course of the month, you will see pieces from historians like our Dr. Mike Lano to Ian Agbusky. We also will have pieces as well from myself. Some of our other writers will have chimed in, showing interest as well. An exciting time, lots of different pieces to expect over the course of the month. Anything specifically this coming week, I don't want to tip my hand on because, well, we want to make sure that we have something concrete. But otherwise, that's what we can look forward this week and really throughout the course of November.
That's right, guys and girls. We don't tell you exactly what's coming out. We give you a brief overview, and then you get your sweet eyes onto the site every day and just keep an eye out on what's coming out. So that's the past and future pieces done and dusted for another week. Thank you very much, Mark. Before we move on, just like to ask you lovely listeners to once again rate and review us on your podcast providers. That would be great. A 5-star review and some nice words would be fantastic. A 1-star review and some harsh words, yeah, not so great, but at least you're interacting with us. It would be great. Everything you do for us pays the bills, and in these hard times, we've all got bills to pay, so you know how that is. Let's go forward. Let's go into this weekend. So this weekend for AEW, we have their second ever Full Gear pay-per-view. Have you guys seen the card?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, right. So I think this is the finalised card because Tony Khan keeps moving a few things around. So as of recording, which is 9:30 on a Thursday night in the UK, this is the card. So the buy-in or the pre-show, we have the NWA Women's World Championship up for grabs, where the aforementioned Serena Deeb will take on Allysin Kay. Then we have Orange Cassidy against John Silver from the Dark Order. We also have Chris Jericho against MJF, with the proviso that if MJF wins, he can join the Inner Circle. We have the cinematic spectacle that will be the Elite Deletion, which is Matt Hardy against Sammy Guevara. We have one hell of a match on our hands where the winner of this match will receive a future AEW World Title shot. This is Kenny Omega against Hangman Page, former partners. Going on, we have the AEW World Tag Team Championship. We've got FTR, the champions, taking on the Young Bucks in a dream match for many people, myself included. The AEW TNT Championship is Cody against Darby Allin. The AEW Women's World Championship is Hikaru Shida against Nyla Rose. And, of course, the all-important big one, the AEW World Championship is an I Quit match with Jon Moxley defending his title against former friend, now major foe, Eddie Kingston. Guys, that is a stacked card for a 3-hour show. It's going to be tight, I think. Anything there, take a fancy. Anything there you want to poo-poo on, hit me up, talk to me, go. Pete, what you got?
Whew, Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay. I really like Serena Deeb. I went back to look at her work with the Straight Edge Society.
Oh, that was so good.
When I was coming back to pro wrestling and starting to get the sense of stuff I missed while I was away. And yeah, her work with the Straight Edge Society and CM Punk is incredible. Orange Cassidy versus John Silver seems like kind of a step down after having matches with Chris Jericho and Cody. I'm excited to see what this Elite Deletion match is going to look like, because it's from the title, it seems like it's going to be a cinematic match.
Yeah.
And I'm always interested to see how cinematic matches goes. And you know, Matt Hardy he's just so talented when it comes to these strange masterpieces that he's made between him and his brother, and all the stuff that happened in Impact. Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose seems a rematch that's long overdue, but at the same time still kind of suffers from the lack of inspiration that I'm seeing in the women's division in AEW right now. Like we said, FTR versus the Young Bucks seems like it's going to be a damp squib. You forgot to mention Tully Blanchard, banned from ringside.
Oh, I did, didn't I? Yes, that was mentioned. Yes.
And
folks.
And if the Bucks were to lose, they'll never challenge again for the titles.
So I'm wondering,
the stakes are high.
Yeah, what does that mean for them moving forward should they lose? Because, you know, it's not like there's another tag team championship that's floating around in AEW for them to challenge for. Whereas, you know, Cody has the TNT championship now. Chris Jericho versus MJF is going to be interesting, to say the least. It's not often that we see a heel versus heel match, though we might be seeing that with FTR and the Young Bucks. John Moxley versus Eddie Kingston feels kind of like an afterthought, just because it seems like Eddie has kind of been dragging out his claim to the championship as long as possible. But if this were, say, John Moxley versus Brian Cage, or John Moxley versus Lance Archer, I think that would be more fitting for the championship match on a pay-per-view than John Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. Not that I necessarily have anything against Eddie. It's just that the build for this has been kind of slapdash, in my opinion. And of course, Cody, who now has his name back, he's Cody Rhodes. He'll be taking on Darby Allin, and I am excited for that, because I don't think they ever had a rematch for their time limit draw at Fight for the Fallen last year.
I don't think so, no. Good memory.
And Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page is going to be phenomenal anyway, because we saw that at All In last year. No, it wasn't All In. It was Double or Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that match tore the house down, and I expect them to tear the house down again on Saturday night.
Cool. Okay, Mark, same question to you.
So much like Pete, I would just pretty much run through the card. In looking at Page and Omega, I think this would be something where this is the opportunity where Page is pushed to the forefront. Much like they've kind of had that burn, that you get the feeling that there's something a little more special about him. And to see him being classified as the tag team wrestler, even by his former partner, improves that he, as the tag team wrestler, beats the consummate singles champion internationally, especially with how he's been presented recently, would be a lot of fun, and definitely leads to something interesting if he's the one that's going to challenge Moxley. And now what is now Cody Rhodes, much like Pete had mentioned, from what I've heard, the trade-off was he would forego pursuing WWE trademarked names that Dusty created in exchange for his name.
Yeah.
So, which is unfortunate, because it really would have been nice for them to have had something about, I think he the way Cody had phrased it was about collecting cattle and trying to herd them, just like the Texan and the cowboy, in which Dusty is just hurdling his cattle, because that was just part of what he did. So It would be interesting to see what would happen with him and Alan. They're just such different characters. Does this become the point in which Alan is elevated and he becomes the face of the TNT Championship? So many have come closer, or is Cody continue to be the front runner and the one that holds on to that title? Do you take it away from him? Is this become in essence kind of a passing of the torch? What else does Cody move on to from here if he doesn't have the title? So does one person need it as opposed to the other? Kind of the questions that you kind of raised. The FTR tag team match against the Young Bucks, much like we talked about with some of the underwhelming build, I think throwing additional stipulations might be a little bit of an overkill, because is now the idea that they're trying to make up for what was not exciting enough of a build and been very lackluster, to then throw in, we will raise the stakes and we will raise the stakes, and these are all the things that will play into it. What ends up happening if the Bucks lose? Is that something that they hold to, or being heelish? We're heels, we lie. They're granted their opportunity again. It would make perfect sense. When looking at Moxley and Kingston is more of a sentimental favorite. I don't think anybody would pick him to be the one to win the title, especially since Kingston has lost to Cody and he's lost in other ways. But this would definitely be more of a coming out, especially since there is a long-standing kind of a relationship and respect amongst the two of them, years of being in the business. And you're just happy for a guy that's been as committed to the industry as much as he is, being put in the main event for a title against his friend. Even in a loss, it's a win. As we continue to look through the card, the Guevara Hardy match, I think we had talked very briefly about it. This really is make it or break it. I think this is a last-ditch effort to try and make chicken salad out of what has been a comedy of errors. Unfortunately, nobody plans on concussions. Nobody plans on ill falls. Poor timing is going to happen. It shouldn't. Is there criticism? Are there comments that are going to be thrown? Is Guevara going to make mistakes? Yes. Do you hope that he's learned from them? Hopefully, yes. This is where the mentor in Hardy can really come up. And so we hope that this elite deletion ends up being that. Do we see tie-in to other characters come out? Version 1? Who knows? Well, it'd be interesting.
The thing that just occurred to me about that match, which is hopefully that'll mitigate some of the problems that they've had last time they've clashed, is that it's cinematic, so it's all done in a controlled environment.
So did you guys see Matt's tweet from a few days ago?
No.
Okay, he was talking about this match. He was obviously promoting the match, and he talks about how he's got to cleanse the vessel of Sammy Guevara at the Lake of Reincarnation. And,
oh boy!
And he added a little video of him throwing a certain Bray Wyatt into the Lake of Reincarnation. So I don't know if that was a dig or at WWE, or if that was him saying, "Hey, look, I helped create the Fiend. Look what I can create with Sammy Guevara." But I thought it was pretty good. But Matt himself has gone on record saying that he has high hopes that this match will be remembered. What else did he say? That it was this is the final battle, and it is a definite cinematic style match, and he hopes that this match will be remembered. As Pete said earlier, he has great pedigree in cinematic matches, and I think he had a major hand in the Stadium Stampede match from earlier this year, which was completely insane, balmy, and fantastic all in one. And I think we can expect the same with this Elite Deletion. That's one of my highlights for this weekend for me, just because Matt Hardy's elevated cinematic wrestling to a level that I never knew it could get to, and it's just been more and more each time. Even WWE earlier this year at WrestleMania with the Firefly Funhouse match and the Graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely an option now, and it highlights. It doesn't highlight. It hides certain wrestlers inabilities, so to speak. So whereas Matt is not as youthful and agile and quick as he used to be, this match will cover that and show his strengths.
Oh, indeed. Indeed. Sheeta and Rose, again, it is kind of this long-standing match that you've kind of waited for to finally happen. But it's been an opportunity to have this slow burn that not a lot of women's matches or even feuds have really gotten. So while the entire division as a whole is weak, you have to start somewhere, and you have to start even with a small piece. So if it's going to be with Sheeta and Rose, so be it. But really go for broke and really make this something special because they really needed it. There's so many women in this division that can do great things. It just needs that opportunity to do that. So let's hopefully that this is the opportunity that happens. A little curious about the Jericho MJF match, just because does much like a presidential election, does MJF go quietly into the night? I really don't know if this just ends and they're even in a loss. Does he necessarily give up the idea of joining the inner circle, or does Jericho just openly accept? Because even every instance there has been doubt. So why wouldn't there be doubt that even in a loss that he'd still give up the idea of coming and joining and being accepted, when even under a stipulation, much like in the WWE where there's the stipulation of an Uso joining his tribal chief, is he going to do it willingly? I don't know. I'm just very doubtful that that's going to quickly be reflected.
One of my close wrestling buds over here floated the idea that MJF joining the inner circle could end up being the Rock turning against Farouk in the Nation of Domination. So could there be a slow burn story of MJF joining the inner circle, winning everyone else's trust, and eventually kicking Chris Jericho out of the group?
Interesting.
Then whose inner circle would they be?
Oh, they'll be MJF's, wouldn't they? Same as the Nation was the Rock.
Okay, yeah, Rock. I see. Yeah, I see where you're going. That would be interesting. But that
slow burn.
Mm-hmm. But that also assumes that everyone would get along with MJF immediately after joining.
Well, we all know MJF is abrasive to say the least, but I think if MJF beats Chris Jericho, the way I would see it is that everyone else in the inner circle would go, oh, okay, he's got some talent. He's put one over on the boss. We'll give him a yard, so to speak, and then MJF will take that yard and a lot more to cozy up and force Jericho out. That was my friend Mr. O who posted that. I think a couple of weeks ago, actually. It's just popped back into my brain. Yeah, that was something that's just floating around out there. Just this doesn't have to be the end of the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does this turn Jericho face?
I reckon this will be, if this came to pass, it's got to be a Jericho face turn. If he's being kicked out of his own group, and MJF is a nasty piece of whatever anyway, it's instant face turn for Jericho, and that could be his last hurrah, because he's been doing a lot more commentary recently.
Yeah,
and I think Pete said the other week that Jericho's gone on record to say that he's looking to wind down his career.
I mean, at 48, it's going to happen.
Yeah, he's got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, I mean,
he said he was going to retire at 50.
There you go. See, he's on the wind down already.
Unlike Pete, that maybe isn't a fan of where the Cassidy Silver is match. I'm actually see this as a good thing for John Silver. If you've been kind of watching him, he's comical in which his approach has been. He stood out as the one guy within the Dark Order, unlike those that are getting the attention. And this is maybe that opportunity to foregrow. He is super, super talented, strong, incredibly strong. Like, for a guy his size, I almost wish people had seen some of his work outside of AEW to know what he's capable of. You're getting a chance to see a little bit of the personality, And it's kind of funny where we see this almost over the top, yappity guy that's pint sized in some respects, that has, in some ways, I don't want to say Herculean, but really, really strong, and really can use that to his advantage in being something different. So you have all the attention of one, of which, say, Orange Cassidy is, being calm and collected. It's kind of like this complexity of characters and how they're so different in some ways, and that could have to come together to make something work. So the over exuberant John Silver and the calm collective Orange Cassidy, and let's see what happens here. It may just as well be Cassidy going over again, which I don't think hurts him. It just continues to say, well, he's recognized, but what is happening? Or does this lead into a feud with Dark Order, which is not a bad thing, because then maybe it leads to something with Brody Lee, where he would have to seek retribution for, I don't want to, oh, is that 2 shots now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. There you go. He took a massive beating at the hands of Lee before, so now this is his chance to redeem himself. So let's hope that would come about, and maybe that this kind of parlays into the return of Brody Lee. As far as the women's match, we did mention again Serena Deeb. Allysin Kay, I don't believe, is signed. So from what I've been told or what I've read, she's not even under contract with NWA. So even though she's a former NWA Women's Champion, she's a free agent. I think she's posted that even on social media. Billy Corgan's allowing those that are feeling kind of restricted in their contracts. He's just freely letting them out of them, so they're able to go and pursue other opportunities. A return to Impact is probably the most sensible, makes the most sense. It seems like it's a thriving women's division. Of any of the promotions, it seems like it's the most exciting to be a part of. So, again, D being the AEW...
NWA.
Being the AEW talent on the end, defending the NWA title. Yeah, so defending the NWA title, we can't see that going anywhere, but it should just as well be an exciting match. And fan of Allysin Kay too, definitely.
Okay, I have an issue with something you've both said, but I'll get to that in a minute on the card. Okay, so I just want to pick out a few things here. The Tag Team Championship, FTR against the Bucks. I think you're both bang on there. We spoke about this before we went on air, that it's been pushed very quickly, very hard. It hasn't been pushed that well. The stories have been a bit meh at best, and these stipulations are pushing FTR into a corner because it looks like Young Bucks are going to win, much like how Kenny and Page were on opposite sides of the draw in the tournament. It looks like the Bucks are going to win this. Otherwise, what's the point of the Bucks? Although saying that, one of the Bucks, I think it's Matt, is carrying an injury, which is why they've only wrestled 9 times in about 6 months. I want to say it was a slight tear to his ACL, which obviously is knee, and it limits what he can do in the ring. So that is an issue going into the match. I'm sure he'll get protected and looked after, but it's looking like a Young Bucks victory. It's got to be a Young Bucks victory with that stipulation. The TNT Championship, this is obviously a great callback to their match, which was really, really well appreciated. Of course, I can't remember. Was it last year? Again, I said before recording that Darby Allin is one of my little wingman's favourite wrestlers at the moment. And he's super looking forward to this match just because he wants to see Darby use a skateboard in a new way that hasn't been done before. Okay, here's my gripe. The AEW World Championship, Moxley against Kingston. I said a few weeks ago that I am really, really getting behind Eddie Kingston. Obviously, he's been around for 18 years, and any decent wrestling fan knows who Eddie Kingston is and his history. Did either of you see the promo from Dynamite last night between the two?
I did.
I absolutely freaking loved it. For the lack of story or story development, I should say, in the last few weeks to get to this point, last night, for me, that promo sold that match. Absolutely sold that match. It hits everything you ever want in a promo. It put across how much Eddie wants that title, how much he's forsaken to get his chance at that title, how much he's going to hurt Jon Moxley to get that title. And then on the flip side, you had Jon Moxley saying, you can give it all you can, but you're not getting this, because of that. It went personal, it went deep. It really, really amped everything up. And it's an I Quit match. An I Quit match is basically a no rules match. You can guarantee some shenanigans in that. Do I think Eddie's going to win? No. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did due to shenanigans. I did say this a few weeks ago. But if he doesn't win here, he's going to win down the road. This match is your low-key match of the night. I know we've all gone crazy about Paige and Omega. We all know that's going to be an amazing match. I reckon this I Quit match could be up there with anything ever. I know I'm putting myself out on a limb here, folks, and feel free, once again, if this goes completely wrong, to hit me up on Twitter and call me an idiot. But I honestly think this could be an amazing match. It's going to go all around Daly's place. It's going to go everywhere. It's going to go backstage. It's going to go all in the car lot, whatever. But it is going to be full of emotion, full of violence and physicality. And that's, to me, that's all I want. What say you two? Am I wrong?
Not at all.
Yeah, I didn't consider the possibility of shenanigans, but at the same time, Moxley's had to deal with shenanigans before in main event match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, like, he's even had to deal with the Dark Order. So I'm wondering exactly what it is that Moxley could bring. Obviously the Lucha Brothers, but like I haven't seen him much involved with the Butcher and the Blade lately. So is it really just going to be Eddie Kingston and Penta and Phoenix? I guess not Phoenix because he necked himself. But is that going to be enough to put down Jon Moxley?
Who was the third of Death Triangle?
Pac, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it over.
Promos are starting. I know they've only just started, but it wouldn't surprise me if he could sneak his way in and get involved that way. And then you've got Pac against Moxley again, which again whets my appetite more than you could possibly imagine.
Mm-hmm. But you mentioned there's going to be another lockdown in England. So if there's a lockdown, how exactly is he going to make the show?
I don't know if he's over here. I don't know if he's over here or if he's over there already. I'm not too sure. I shall be checking his Twitter to see how he's doing. Makes it sound like I'm his friend, doesn't it?
Oh, for all intents and purposes, maybe you are. Should have leaned into that. Could have been a recurring joke. Mark is close personal friends with Pac.
I've seen Pac wrestle. Oh my god, he is proper scary. When he's in character, well, he's always in bloody character apparently. But yeah, I was literally about 10 feet from him, and he's going around doing somersaults and swantons and everything else. And I'm thinking, and this is on a broken ring, by the way. The ring had broke halfway through this match, and I was like, yeah, screw it, we'll carry on. I can't find out if he is or he isn't. But like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he was over there already and just before lockdown happened over here. For the people that are not British or English, there is a national lockdown over here. It came into force today, so it wouldn't surprise me if he jumped on a plane late last night. But yeah, I'm more excited for this AEW card than I have been for for Revolution. I think Revolution was a bit of a meh, whereas this one, I'm there's 2, 3, 4 matches there which look could be possibly, fingers crossed, amazing. There we go, folks. Once again, we've dipped into a bit of fancy booking. We've gone through this weekend's card. As usual, feel free to blast me. I'm not going to speak for the other two, but feel free to blast me on Twitter if any of my predictions and or stories are wrong, or you just think I'm an idiot and I need pulling down a peg or two,
Have
feel free
have
to.
you been blasted?
Sorry, have I been blasted? Not
Yeah.
publicly. Not publicly. I have had a few DMs where my how can I put it? My vernacular has been called into question. My accent, because I've even noticed myself on playback that I start talking posh-ish, and then I will slip and I'll start talking like this, and then I'll drop the T's and everything else. So I get called out for that. Oh, you stay like one dialect or whatever, rather than switching. But it's all right. I love it. I will interact with all of you. You know this by now. We're 13 episodes in. You tweet me, I will tweet you back. You want to blast me? That's fine. I can take criticism. I'm a big boy. And then what you don't hear is me cursing you as I'm talking about you behind your back. It's all good. So there we go. We're going to wrap this up now because it's getting late and I have been awake for more hours than I care to imagine because the aforementioned lockdown has played havoc with my work schedule. As always, you can download the Pro Wrestling Post podcast from your usual podcast providers such as Apple, Spotify, Google. Just type in Pro Wrestling Post podcast and there we are. Once again, please leave us a 5-star review. Just rate us. Just get us higher up those rankings. We need that money. We've got bills to pay. That's it. I'm going to pass this over to Pete and then to Mark to post their socials. Pete, what's your socials, mate?
You can blast me online at on Twitter, at least at Pete Probably. You can read my weekly feature, Brace for Impact, every Monday on the Pro Wrestling Post website. And you can find me in real life on a heavily camouflaged island in the South Pacific, where I also live along with the International Rescue Organization.
I love the fact that every time you do something like this, both myself and Mark just take a second or two just to soak it in and work it out. I'm not going to spoil it, folks.
I figured you would definitely get this one, Mark.
You can work it out and just don't blast him on Twitter. Just say, haha, I've worked it out, and then you tell him what it is. Mark, yourself, mate.
As I'm left here shaking, scratching my head at that. And more so because I'm just not really sure where it came from, but yet it came. And it's there. So
it's on record forever now.
It is. This will go live eventually. So I'm not even sure what I was going to say. I'm completely flabbergasted.
It's your socials, mate.
Yeah, it is my socials. I'm being antisocial. You can blast me too. I'm a big boy. It's okay if there's something that you have to say that you don't like that I said. Please do. If there's something you don't like with what we do, please share that too. Criticism, even the harshest and most brutal and filled with 4-letter words, that's fine. We have to filter out and try and see where there is justified criticism. So, and to do that, you can reach me either independently at the Marc Madison or on our staff site, social at Pro Wrestling PST. You can also reach us and follow our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/Pro Wrestling PST, or on Instagram at Pro Wrestling Post.
There we go. They've laid the gauntlet down. Feel free to blast them. I was being nice and protecting them, but hey, you guys and girls crack on. And as always, if you want to blast me or even be nice to me, that would make a change. You can find me on Twitter at Mark Blake PWP. And then if you like the pod and you want to follow the pod for its funny gifs and malarkey, such like that, you can find them at PWP_pod. Now, next week is our 3rd week of this new format of ours where we take a promotion, look at its past and look at its future. Next week, we are going to something a bit closer to home for one of our guys. We're going to be looking at Impact Wrestling, and I think Pete is really, really happy about that.
Yay!
So until next week, I will leave you. Adieu. Adios. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Hasta luego.